My name is Weldon Wade. I'm an avid ocean advocate, diver, and community activist. Well, for me, what I love doing the most is bringing the community together. I love hosting beach cleanups and lionfish culling events, bringing businesses and the community in general together to unite for a common purpose, which would, in the cases that I'm involved in, is removing trash from the ocean. I mean, the ocean really connects us all, and connecting with people globally has been important to getting my message out there. It's just been a wonderful experience connecting with schools and students to talk about the problems that our ocean faces. And it's great to get together with other ocean heroes to talk about what we're doing and getting our message across. I believe one of the cornerstones to protecting the ocean is human connection and awareness. So the more people are aware of how important the ocean is to our health and our well-being, that's very valuable.
Wow, it is. This is it. This
We're
is
here.
it.
We made it.
We made it. Got a new little ticker running along the bottom, just announcing what makes tonight extra, extra special. Jess, it is our season finale of episode 1. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. How are you?
It's been a week. It's been a day. Like a lot of these days lately, it's just been, a thing. But it's wonderful to have had this event in my calendar for the last 10 weeks already, hanging out with you and our viewership, just sharing stories and sharing experiences and just overall having a good time, And it's been great hanging out with you, Jess, in particular, because this wasn't originally part of the framework, and now it looks like once we wrap this up and take a little breather, doesn't mean we're tired, just take a breather, readjust, pivot, add some stuff, some tweaks, and get into season 2. I'm really, really excited. And what I can share is I'm open to do that sooner than later. So yeah, we're not going to be going for very long, you guys. How you feel about all this, Jess?
I'm so excited. I cannot wait. Season 2 is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, it's
Guys,
going to
just
be
wait and
different.
see.
Definitely going to be different. Guys, if you are watching us live, thank you so much for tuning into episode 10 of The Wade in the Water. Used to be late live show, that means a live show, and who knows what it's going to evolve into over the next little bit as we rejig and adjust for season 2. So if you're live, drop a comment, let us know where you're from, what type of diving or flavor of diving you enjoy the most, and we'd just love to have your engagement and feedback. But just as a reminder, it's Wednesday, October 6th, 2021, and just like I do every night, I want to shout out to all the divers and instructors, the explorers, the mermaids, photographers, ocean content creators across the planet, and all the swimmers, divers, snorkelers, free divers, scuba divers, technical and commercial divers, boaters, sailors, and fishermen, and all you guys that are in, on, and under the water all the time. Hello and welcome to the Wade in the Water live show, episode 10, brought to you by TBI 10 weeks. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that you and your family are well. If this is your first time watching, I'm your host, Weldon Wade, with my co-host, the beautiful Jessica Lee. We're divers, we're educators, we're both advocates for the ocean and for sustainability in our own unique ways, but we do have a lot of similarities, which we'll touch on in a second. Jess is a PADI diving instructor. I am a PADI ambassador diver, and it's our job to get you diving and keep you diving. And we just want this show to help keep you informed, aware, and educated on what's going on here on the island and where Jessica is in Texas, all across the region and to the world, sharing stories and experiences. So tonight's topic is going to be all about guarding the gardens. So we'll get into that in a sec, because guys, like guarding the gardens aboard the MV Fling, a liveaboard experience out of Texas, which is cool. So carrying on with the monologue, you know how we do this every Wednesday night. We're going to run the show every Wednesday night live on Facebook and YouTube until 10 weeks, which is tonight. So this is our last show of season 1. But this live, as well as all the replays, are available on Facebook and YouTube with replay available right away. So as soon as I say end broadcast, it does some processing, and then it's live right away. Just at your fingertips. So yeah, I've said it a couple times already. It makes me sad, but last episode right here. What season 2 gonna look like? We're not sure. but we're going to move to an earlier time. So shout out to all our night owls that have been joining us 10 o'clock. We've got, I don't know if they're on because I can't really tell, but we've got 35 people on the live and 3 thumbs ups. I think Magic and JD might be in the house. I'm not sure, but the quickest way to get to the show, we'll watch any replays. I set this up, just did put my IT hat on. I set up live.weldonwade.com as a redirect, so that shoots you right over to YouTube where you can watch it all. So all the episodes live there. So yeah, a lot to share tonight about our vibe aboard the Fling. It's where Jess and I met, and we were part of a cadre of scientists and divers, which was really, really awesome. And I'm dabbling in and out of the topic during my monologue, which might not be the best tactic. Like magic. Oh wait, let me stop the scroller. Let me stop the scroller. I think we got that covered. Let me put up a comment real quick, Jess. Magic is in the house. Got it locked in, you guys. Yeah, 10 weeks, man. Like when you think about it, you're like, wow, 10 weeks. That's quite an innings. But while you're here, like, dislike, comment, subscribe. It all helps the show to grow. And if you'd like to be a guest on any future shows, once we start season 2, jump on impromptu. If you want to sponsor or support, have your logo up, we're happy to do that. Send an email to hello@weldonwade.com. Be happy to have you on deck. No news to share tonight, right? There's things going on, but I figured what we'll do a little bit differently is just jump right into the topic. And I gave Jess a heads up because we do a bit of prep for the show. Yeah, you've got, make sure I go to Limelight and get cleaned up, get the edges crispy, put on same shirt I wear almost every week. It's what's there. It's just hanging up on the door. Like I don't part on my nose or anything. But you see behind me, once I go full screen, the candle of the evening, it's special. It's a special night. I said, well, swizzle, champagne, but I lit a candle. It's a Penny and Drum exclusive. It's a Bermuda rum swizzle scented candle. And the reason why it is extra special tonight is that the founder has decided to stop producing the Bermuda line of fragrances. So as soon as she told me that, I went and grabbed a few from BUEI. They're also available in Hamilton at the Island shop, I believe. And yeah, it's a wrap. So Grotto Bay and the Tempest and the Rum Swizzle, all these really cool handcrafted Bermuda-inspired scents. It's a wrap. So that's what I got burning behind me tonight. That's my swizzle of the evening. And that's it, you guys. We can get into our topic right about now. But for our viewership, Jess, and I did give Jess a heads up. I was going to be, having her address this. The bit of an elephant in the room. We can't always make an assumption that everyone knows what this whole lionfish invasion is all about, and that was the whole reason I flew over to Texas to join this crew aboard the Fling and call Lionfish. So, Jess, what do you say about that? If someone says, let me get rid of Magic's thing. I actually queued up a thing here. Let me see how this goes. I just said, why are lionfish a problem, Jess? Like, why are we calling these beautiful fish and eating them to beat them and not just leaving them alone?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And the answer is they're not necessarily a problem in their native range, right? And so, but they're not from here. So they're in the Gulf of Mexico, they're in the Atlantic, they're in the Caribbean, and they're what we call an invasive species. So this is not their natural realm. This is not their native habitat. And so it's a problem whenever an invasive species moves into an area, regardless of what it is, because it usually, when that happens, a lot of times it'll compete with the local species that live there for the same resources, that type of thing, right? So they all have to eat, they all have to take up space. It's also a problem in the case of lionfish is that there's no natural predators. So in any population, it's always important to have balance. So you have predators, you have prey, you have herbivores that are eating the algae off the reef. And we talked about this in previous episodes. So they're all important and they all kind of play their own role within the environment, within the ecosystem. But whenever you have an invasive species that comes in, whether it is accidental, on purpose, natural, it could become a problem because now you have competition for resources. And whenever you don't have a natural predator, then that species can really flourish. And lionfish are really unique, and they have really, really kind of exploded in this area over the last couple of decades. So, and that the reason for that is that they reproduce very quickly. And they are very successful, and they are also voracious eaters. So lionfish are known in our parts, anyways, for being these voracious eaters. So they can eat pretty much anything that fits in their mouth, which it opens up very wide, so they can eat a lot. So that's it. It can be a real problem, and it has been a real problem from all the way from Bermuda down the Atlantic coast of the U.S. down into the Caribbean and into the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, it's they are beautiful, and they're great where they're from, which is the Indo-Pacific. But here it's a real problem.
It is, and there's so much to be said about the invasion itself. We've been in this space now for a while, diving and identifying threats to the ocean, and as divers working tirelessly to help preserve the environment, make sure that in 10 years' time when we're diving, the reef and the health of the ecosystem is as it is or better. Yeah, we want to stop the progression of bad things and level up on all the good things. So there is certainly a lot of work to do, and there are threats to the ocean that go beyond invasives, whether it's climate change, ocean acidification, diseases, overfishing. Goodness, yeah, the list is long. But NOAA decided to host a Lionfish Invitational, and I'm hoping to have someone from NOAA join us on the live. And when this wonderful individual does, I'll be happy to introduce them and cue them into the stream. But yeah, I remember seeing this on Facebook about there being a Lionfish Invitational event. And I was like, oh, this is pretty dope. You kind of apply and you get selected and you fly out to Texas and jump aboard a liveaboard and spend a few days in the Flower Gardens Marine Sanctuary. It's NOAA's turf, and dive for lionfish. So around here in Bermuda, and Jess, I'd love to hear like the lionfish culling efforts, like from shore in Texas and that bit. But I dive from shore a lot. There are hotspots all around Bermuda, but really the South Shore, where John Smith's Bay is, which Magic JD and I will take you there when you visit. But now what we're finding today and even last season is when we'll go west off the west end, heading toward Chubhead Beacon for lobsters, we're finding more lionfish than lobsters, and that's no real surprise, you guys, because during the day when you're harvesting for lobsters, you're diving down and you're looking up into holes where the lobsters are hiding, or under ledges, those dark shadowed ledges where you normally see the antenna sticking out, and our lobsters don't have any claws. They're just spiny lobsters. Though that same hideout that the lobsters enjoy are also where lionfish enjoy what we call holing up during the day. And what we find is at night, because I night dive as well, Jessica does too, and a lot of our diving viewership does as well. At night, what I find is the lobsters come out to hunt, and the lionfish do too. So it's these similarities that's quite interesting to see out in the field. So avid lobster divers are going west, they're going southwest, they're going northwest, and they're looking for lobsters. And they're like, guys, like, yeah, we got quota. We got, 3 of us went out. We got our 2 per day. So we got 6 on deck that are all the right size. There aren't any females bearing any eggs. But yeah, we got 20 lionfish on deck. Like, so crazy, but that's how it is. So it's just interesting these times. And the lobster season opened in September. It runs through March. And yeah, we're getting avid lobster divers that normally wouldn't find lionfish all on the west side of our platform. It's just strictly lobsters in this sense, but they're finding them. They have their spears with them as well. So it's wonderful where we have this crisscross of the community, because traditionally, going back, I don't know, even 5 years, you go for lobsters, you get your lobsters. You want to go for lionfish, you go in this lionfish valley, or lionfish alley, I think we called it. It would be pretty much like from mid-ocean Club, all the way down to maybe Spittle. Jess, there's like this hot spot along South Shore where, we always send callers to go because there'd always be lionfish there, but now they're just proliferating. What's it like? What's the Texas vibe like? And then just to frame this real quick, because a lot of people will measure, scientifically we'll measure by hectare how many lionfish are in a hectare, the size of a football field, and we'll count them. And if it's high, that's bad. If it's low, that's kind of good. But Jess, if you and I were to do a scuba dive right now, let's say tomorrow, I think we'd probably come back with about 6 or 7. I'd say we wouldn't hit double digits on a scuba dive. Maybe if we were free diving, we'd come back with a bit more just because we'd be in the water longer. So that's a kind of point of reference, if you will. We're not going to drop down to 30 feet, 60 feet and come back where we've got like 4 zookeepers full. So what's the vibe like in Texas?
So it's a little bit different here, right? So we don't have access to shore diving like you do. So we aren't diving off of our beaches here. And so all of the lionfish hunts would be like if you were just going to go out with some friends, hop on a boat, going out to the oil rigs.
I see.
Yeah.
See.
So where you would be hunting, at least here. So further south, it's a little bit different situation further south in Texas. But in about mid-coast where I am in the Houston area, Galveston area, so it would be oil rigs is where you'd be going out to. So it's a different because it's isolated areas of habitat versus just like a sloping area or a reef. And so it depends on the oil rig. It depends on where it's at and how deep you go. But we do have lionfish out at the oil rigs, and we do have them going down pretty deep. And then again, it's a little bit different situation too, because out the flower garden banks, as you and I both know, you can't hunt lionfish out there except for during the invitational because it is a protected area. So we can't bring our spears out there. So even though people can go out, not all year. It gets a little choppy here in the winter. But the divers who are going out are not culling lionfish at the flower garden banks because it is a no spear area. So it's a little bit different situation. We are seeing them, as you know. The problem is, unfortunately, I haven't been out to the flower garden banks in a little bit. And so I don't know what it's looking like right there right now as far as lionfish goes. But as you remember, and we'll talk about this more later, it's kind of like what you're saying. It's not they're not covering the reefs out there. We've been very lucky where it's not like this crazy like inundation of lionfish. So, but you'll definitely spot a few.
Yeah, that's interesting because so let me just break it down a little bit. So when I come and visit you and spend time with you and your dive crew, and we want to do diving, we'll be doing boat diving.
Correct.
We'll jump on a boat, some boat, and head out to and do oil rig diving.
Oil rig. There's also the Kraken, which is a sunken wreck that was sunk by the Texas Parks and Wildlife. That one's a little bit easier to get to, and it's far enough out that it's in clear water, but it's close enough that it's easy to get on a day trip. There's the oil rigs. Also, you can get out to Stetson for day trips.
Stetson is another sanctuary?
Stetson is Stetson's Bank. It is part of the Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary.
Okay.
So there's East Bank, West Banks, and Stetson. And then recently, which was very exciting, they added Saunier Banks, which is a little bit different beast.
Okay. That's great intel. And without further ado, I'm not going to give Kelly any time to season here. I'm going to bring Kelly on stage right away. Kelly is from NOAA. And it was certainly a privilege and an honor to have her on the boat, and to everybody. Actually, it was I remember putting in one of the descriptions of the album I put on Facebook. I was like, rock stars, and everyone on the boat was a rock star. Everyone from captain, crew, the cook. Oh my goodness, the food was amazing. The crew kept us all safe. The captains, because for you guys that have never done a liveaboard before, and I had never done a liveaboard before either, you're on a boat the whole time. So you're showering, you've got the compressors on deck, you got the nitrox, you're sleeping. So all of that was really, really dope, and I hope to touch on all of that. But I know I only have Kelly for a limited amount of time, so I want to bring her on to the stage. And yeah, Kelly can introduce herself and talk more about NOAA and the presence they have and the projects that go on with respect to what Jess and I were involved in when we met, taking divers out to the Flower Gardens Marine Sanctuary and culling invasive lionfish. Kelly, I'm going to bring you in. Hi, Kelly. You got us?
I can't hear.
Oh, no. So we can hear you. We can hear you. We can see
Can
you.
you hear me?
Yeah, we can, actually. You sound great.
I can't hear you.
Oh, no.
Hi, I'm Kelly Drinnen. I'm an education and outreach specialist with Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary. And I know these two fine folks from our Lionfish Invitational.
Wow, this is going to be interesting if you can't hear us.
I can type in the chat the questions to her.
Yeah, if Kelly could just tell us like what was the genesis of the invitational, you know, how long NOAA have been doing the invitational, that kind of thing. And I'm going to see if there's any audio business.
Got it.
Hey, success.
New headset and some setting got changed.
So Kelly, what I often say on this show is that we're building it while we fly, right?
Okay.
So you are our very special guest joining us on episode 10. This is our season finale. Like I mentioned in our email, Jess and I, we met aboard the Fling during your expedition to the Flower Gardens.
Mhm.
And yeah, we were quiet with each other for a little while until I started this live show 10 weeks ago. Jess joined in on episode 1. She joined in on episode 2. And I haven't been able to get rid of her since. And now she's my co-host. I have a beautiful co-host who is amazing. I don't give her enough credit. But yeah, so we said, look, why not finish season 1 talking about where we met. We touched on the mosquitoes at one episode before. And I know when we got to the dock to board the Fling, it was okay. But I remember, you know, we got to know each other for those few days and we got back to the dock and you couldn't even talk. You were just like... So
I'm actually covered in bug spray right now. I just came in from the volleyball courts outside.
Wow. So it's a privilege and an honor to have your time tonight. And again, I recognize we have a short window because Jess and I can take this like for another 90 minutes if we wanted to. But please, for the benefit of our viewership, we've got about 37 people live. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and yeah, we can niche this down to specifically the expedition that we met on, you know, why NOAA does this, how long NOAA has been doing this. And I think Jess and I would love to get back aboard the Fling with you and another cadre of rock stars to do this again next year.
Yeah, so I work with Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary. It's part of the National Marine Sanctuary System under NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in the United States. And under this, we protect a bunch of ocean areas in a way similar to national parks, but instead of being, you know, inland with a gate and an entry area, we're underwater. And so there's these vast areas with borders around them that you can't see, and you don't necessarily know you're there until you see the mooring buoys and things to tie off on. But the Flower Garden Banks are these beautiful coral reefs, actually 100 miles offshore from the Texas coastline in the Gulf of Mexico, in a place nobody expects there to be coral reefs. When you think of coral reefs, you think of Florida and Bermuda and Cancun and Cozumel and all these wonderful Caribbean exotic destinations, not Texas. Texas is known for a lot of things, but not usually coral reefs. But the hidden treasure here is that these are the healthiest coral reefs in the whole Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico. Nevertheless, they still face threats like other coral reefs, and one of those is the invasive lionfish. And it's an incredibly problematic animal because it eats anything it can fit in its mouth, which is a gaping mouth. So up to about a third to a half of its body size, it can eat something that size. It reproduces very readily after about a year it takes to mature. Then the females reproduce about every 3 days, and you know, at these phenomenal amounts of eggs that they release. And it's just these incredible reproductive rates are putting more and more lionfish out there. Nothing out on the reefs recognizes them as predators, although they may be starting to now. But the problem is that they also don't know that they're at danger from them. And so these things a lot of reef fishes are being eaten by the lionfish. And because the lionfish are in such great numbers and have such voracious appetites, they're depleting numbers of really important reef species. And the ones we really are concerned about, especially, are actually a lot of the smaller ones that are the algae eaters that help keep the algae under control on the reefs and allow the corals to thrive. And so when you're dealing with coral reefs that are already in peril from overfishing and reef degradation and all these other things, lionfish are just like an added problem. They're like the straw that breaks the camel's back. At the flower garden banks, we're fortunate enough to have a really, really healthy coral reef environment. And so the lionfish are there. They're problematic because they're exploding in population, but we seem to have it under control. We haven't seen, our research hasn't shown any drops in any of the species that are of most concern out there. The lionfish seem to be eating. We've been dissecting a lot of lionfish over the years. We've been collecting them to examine their gut contents and see what it is they're eating, and yet we're not seeing drops in the numbers of species that we're mostly seeing in those results.
That's good news.
That is good news. The other thing is we did our very first Lionfish Invitational in 2015.
Here we go.
And it was an event. It was just a singular event. It was the first time we tried it. It was our way of getting the public involved. You've probably heard of lionfish derbies all over the place: Bermuda, Florida, Mexico, all over the Caribbean. Well, because our site is over 100 miles offshore, derbies aren't a realistic thing. We only even have one major dive boat that goes out there to the sanctuary, and it holds 30 people. So we thought, how can we use that dive boat full of 30 people to do a job that's normally done in a competitive weekend where people go out in their own boats and just dive in offshore and take care of the problem. Okay. So we put together what we called the Invitational. People have to apply to participate. They actually pay to participate. We get sponsors that help offset some of the costs, so they're not paying what would be a full price trip out there. But we're getting people who are willing to pay to help us with this conservation issue. And we don't just go out and do the removals, whereas the big derbies, give prize money for the biggest caught, the most caught, the smallest caught, all those things. We can't do that. We're a government agency. We're not offering prize money for these removals. We're doing science with them.
This is like the core of this, and that's why, again, like to this day, this is the most amazing expedition I've been a part of so far. And
that's really cool.
I just wanted to interject just because it had that piece to it. The liveaboard piece being 100 miles offshore, and just again invitational. So you get picked. That's great. If you don't, try again next time. But you're on the boat with rock stars doing the culling and the science.
Right. So some of the science we're doing is we actually have 8 people that service the science team, and I've been on that science team most of the trips. And what we do is before and after the removals, we go out and do surveys of the area that's about to be cleared of lionfish. So we do surveys of the fish populations before. We do surveys of what kind of predators we see in the area that could potentially eat lionfish if they ever got a mind to, and we're convinced that was a good idea. And we do these surveys, collect the data, then we send the divers in to do the removal. And then they remove as many lionfish as they can during that time frame. They come back to the boat. We have a 2-hour surface interval because of the depths we're working at. Another way the flower gardens are unique is they don't start till you get 60 feet down. So most of the diving you're doing is 70 to 90 feet underwater, which limits the amount of time you can spend down and means that over a series of days, you got to spend some time resting in between dives so you can let the gases out of your system. And so we have a 2-hour interval. Then the divers go in and remove more lionfish. And then when they come out, the science team goes in again, surveys the area again, brings in all the tapes and things and measures that we're marking out the area to be cleared. And then we take another rest, and then we start again in another couple hours and do the whole cycle again at several different locations at East Flower Garden Bank, West Flower Garden Bank, and on the last day we do one clearing at Stetson Bank. So the 3 main parts of the sanctuary when this invitational started. I don't know if you realize, but this year the sanctuary also expanded. So now we have 17 banks in the sanctuary, most of which are not within dive limits. As we have a couple other banks that could potentially have recreational divers at them, but right now there's no service to them. There's no mooring buoys. That's something hopefully that will come in the future. And who knows, maybe there'll be extended lionfish invitationals out to new banks in the future. But right now we just want to get offshore. The pandemic has waylaid us a bit. So we had to cancel what we were planning for 2020 because people just shouldn't be that close together in a boat full, for 5 days or 3 days or whatever it is. We were offshore 3 days, I guess it is. And then this year we planned it and we're hoping for the best because things were getting better, and then they weren't. And so we had 2 trips on the books for this year and had to cancel both of those. Ouch. So hopefully the third time's the charm. Next year we'll get the Lionfish Invitational back underway.
Wow. You're bringing back so many awesome memories, and I'll be honest, in terms of like recording the experience,
Mhm.
I brought my GoPro, but the underwater housing for it broke, so I didn't actually get any underwater footage of our trip that Jess and I were on with you, Kelly.
Mhm.
But I don't even think I was focused on capturing any content. It wasn't really that kind of party for me. My
Right.
first live aboard, I knew two of the other divers that flew out of Bermuda, but otherwise, I was buddied up with my friend Katie that I met on the boat. Actually, no, I met Katie at the airport, and
Oh,
we
okay.
flew with Leah, and yeah, it was just great. I mean, I got some photographs like on our way to the dock. We stopped for snow cones. We stopped at a beach, and then next thing I know, we're at the dock, getting aboard the Fling. But I'll share with you and our viewership. My biggest concern was really getting like sick,
Yeah.
like just maybe having maybe too many beers or something like that, or getting hurt. In other words, just not being able to do all the diving. It's
Mhm.
like any other dive trip, right? When you go anywhere to a diving destination and you book a week of diving, you really want to make sure you get everything out of it.
Mhm.
But the difference from going to, for example, Cozumel for a week or Cayman for a week is that you're not on a boat 100 miles offshore.
Mhm.
So, I didn't tell anybody, but I had my gravel, I had all my vitamins. I was really careful as well
Mhm.
because, anything can happen when you're at depth. We're talking about like 90 plus feet of water sometimes. And I might have been with a diver or two that went a little bit deeper than he or she should have a couple of times, but I'm not telling anybody. Uh, I'm not telling on anyone. We're statute of limitations, Kelly. I think it's
Right. Right.
um so it was about just diving safe and making sure topside that I stayed hydrated and kept the bar cool and just didn't get unwell. And fortunately, I didn't. But that aside, I just want our viewership to recognize that this turned into an awesome competition. It had that derby edge to it.
Mhm.
And shout out to Alex Fogg and
Yeah.
Rachel Bowman and all the other colors that were on the boat, but certainly these two were rock stars on the boat in terms of their culling numbers. And yeah, it was like, great. You got your science team going in first, laying those transact lines, and then the culling teams in their buddy pairs competitively picking the sector that you wanted to explore so that there was coverage across the whole circle and getting out there and culling as many as you can. So shortly I'll share some photographs that I took, and you'll see that there's a leaderboard up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think Kelly, just again having you on, I'll do that later. I just want to make the most of your time here with us. I know your time is super valuable. Um, I recognize the genesis of this, like NOAA wanting to get out to the flower gardens, leaning into that derby framework, and taking colors out there. Working with the Fling is a really amazing
Yeah.
opportunity as well because it's a big ship with everything that you need to get out there and do everything you have to do. Because that is quite a ways, and it's not it's a long trip.
Yeah, it's a unique experience. It's not luxury diving. It's not like, going to some resort on one of the yachts where you go, on a dive vacation. This is something completely different. It used to be a cattle boat that not cattle animals, but people for getting back and forth to oil rigs. And then it was converted into a dive vessel way back before I first went out on it. But I've been going out on the Fling since 1999, I want to say. It's been under a couple different ownerships during that time, a couple different captains along the way. But they and one other boat that was called the Spree used to both go out there to the Flower Garden Banks, and they both left from that same dock. And it's a phenomenal experience. I also had the privilege over the years of leading a teacher workshop that went out there diving every summer off the Fling. And just spending 3 days on a boat with a group of 30 people. You get to know each other, you learn new things, you make new connections. It's a real networking experience as well as a conservation experience, just an exploration of these amazing reefs. I mean, you've never seen so much coral anywhere else, have you?
No, it
Yeah.
was stunning. It was
Yeah.
stunning. Jess, what are your thoughts? We were on the boat together.
Yep.
Great
We were right
opportunity.
across from each other. That's how
I
we
know.
that's how we met. And
Great
I think
opportunity to
there's
socialize, but I
Yeah.
was more like, okay, let me rest and get ready
Yeah.
for the next day because I remember early rise,
Yes.
lots of diving.
especially for the science divers. We were the first ones in and the
Yeah.
last ones out every day.
You guys were the real rock stars of the trip because, all of us who were culling, we're out there and we're comparing our numbers and stuff like that. But you guys were the real rock stars of diving. Every dive that we did, you did 2 dives. And you're so right. Like the Flower Garden Banks, it's the first coral reef that it's our coral reef, it's our home reef, and we're so lucky to have a coral reef system that's as healthy as it is here.
Yes.
But that's the cool thing about the Fling too is, there's nothing else to do. We're out there to dive and we eat and we sleep. And so, yeah, like you were saying, Kelly, you get to know the people on the boat so well, because it's not like you get off the boat and you like go your separate ways and you come back the next day. Like you're stuck with each other. We're bunk mates. We're on the boat. We have all our meals together. So it creates like a really
the galley's
unique...
a nice little tight, cozy environment where everybody's kind of shoulder to shoulder eating.
Yep. And there's like that nice top deck we can go out. But yeah, it's a really cool experience because I feel like you get to meet so many people and you get to know everyone pretty well, just because of the proximity and the fact that again, like there's not a whole lot else to do once you get out there other than like eat, sleep, dive, which is like my ideal situation.
Yeah.
Well, eat, sleep, and if you go home hungry from those trips on the Fling, it's your own fault.
Oh my gosh, so much good food.
I remember the food. I remember, there are certain key things that to this day, and this was June of 2019 that the 3 of us were out on this boat. But I want to give the Fling credit, Kelly, as well. I've never been aboard the Aggressor or any of those other popular liveaboard, like the luxury liveaboards.
Right.
But what I want to say to the Fling's credit is this was my first liveaboard experience, and it was really, really nice.
Yeah.
The ship itself was great. But the captain and crew made it amazing, and then the leadership of the expedition as well. So between yourself and Rachel, it was great. And I know there was other help, but how it was organized, and I know this wasn't your first rodeo, Kelly. So salute to you. I mean, having been doing this since 2015 and having been aboard the Fling, since before the year 2000, that's great. You know the boat very intimately, and it, you could kind of tell as you're moving about the cabin and moving about the boat. Okay, this is his or her first time on deck, and okay, this person knows the boat very well. And just like Jessica alluded to, like it was enough space on the boat where you could freely move about and get some air and have some alone time if you wanted to. I hung out on the bow a couple of times, but then I got a bit lonely. I'm like, why am I isolating myself? I'm on a boat full of rock stars. Let me talk to Alex, get some of his secrets, of which I never got. Or let me talk to Rachel and get some of her secrets, which I never got. I just made sure that I think I bought a bottle of rum swizzle on the boat. I was like, let me make sure the swizzle or the rum or whatever I had is equally rationed out. And again, just being safe, having a good time. Yeah. And another thing was like making sure my equipment didn't break, right? Because again, like the isolation piece, to this day, I'm like, wow, it's really great. No one got hurt. I know my friend's buddy, maybe she missed a dive or two, but from what I could see, Kelly, the diving went off without a hitch. We culled a bunch of lionfish, maybe not as many as the previous year, or maybe not as many as we were expecting.
Yeah.
But it was great seeing all the zookeepers stacked up and the freezers were full. And one of the takeaways I do remember is I think some callers were like, oh, can't we eat what we catch?
Yeah. Like, no, we need that for science. Sorry. Yeah, the Fling wasn't inclined to have a whole bunch of, fish guts and things about the boat, and having to deal with all that. Because there is those no discharge kind of things of not throwing things off the boats in the sanctuary and blah, blah, blah. But so they'd have to keep it on board. And I don't think you really want that. But no, the science that we do is really important. And that was the basis for the Lionfish Invitational and how it's different from a derby. And one of the other things we were getting besides, collecting the fish, weighing and measuring them, getting concepts on their size and growth patterns and what they're eating, was also understanding how the experience level of the cullers was important to the overall effort. And so that was actually analyzed. And there's a paper that just came out on that recently, just this past year, about how the experience of the people removing the lionfish is beneficial. And what we saw basically was the people with more experience, of course, removed more lionfish. And some of it comes just down to getting used to finding them, just being better at spotting them. I can go out there and say, I didn't see a single one. And Rachel and Alex can go behind me and find 12 and, and pick them all off, it's just a matter of learning to spot them as part of it. So there's been papers that come out on that. There's been papers on, what we're learning about the gut contents. There's also a very interesting paper. They took the ear bones out of some of the fish we gathered in, I think it was the 2018 expedition. And one of our researchers, Raven Blakeway, she just did her PhD on this, and she was looking at them to determine age and things. And they take those little tiny ear bones and they dissect them and slice them out fine and look at them under microscopes, and they can count the rings and learn how old the lionfish are. So we know that this lionfish was culled in 2018, and they count the rings back and they can tell how old it was. Well, they determined that the largest lionfish we caught had been out there since 3 years before we even knew there were lionfish in the sanctuary. The first lionfish we ever spotted were in 2011, and the age of the oldest one that they have dated so far predated that, if you counted back from when we collected it. So the likelihood is that lionfish were in the sanctuary before we noticed them. They're very good at tucking in up under ledges and things, and when they're small, they're a lot harder to spot. So one of the biggest ones we've had out there, it's the oldest one on record for the Caribbean right now. And it predates when we thought we had lionfish in the sanctuary. So that was pretty cool. That was another paper came out this year. So there's a lot of good science getting done out of the work we're doing on these trips. And there's a lot of experience building for people who haven't had a lot of experience removing lionfish or working offshore. I mean, it's a completely different thing than taking a day trip out, doing a couple dives and coming back again. I'm
taking notes and I'm running out of space on this note card. I don't know why. I clean my desk. I pull out this.
I can help you. The Flower Garden's website, flowergarden.noaa.gov. We've got a page on there about the Lionfish Invitational. We've got a page on there about invasive lionfish. And we've got a page on there about lionfish research. And we've got all sorts of great links there. And we keep adding in the information on the papers and things as they come along. So hopefully you can find what you need there. If you don't find it, let me know and I can email it to you. So
Flower Garden.
Awesome.
Flower Garden.
No, Flower Garden. It's singular.
Okay, I got it right. Okay, great.
Yeah.
I want to say real quick that I did not know that we, as a scientific community in general, were accurately aging lionfish based on those otoliths. I knew that we were collecting those things, and that was the whole idea of aging them. But I didn't know that we had, the ability to do it accurately. And if you got that old big lionfish and you got its ear bone out and you looked at it and you're like, okay, wow, this thing is pretty freaking old.
Yeah, if you go to our lionfish research page too, you can see how exactly tiny an otolith is and what it must take to actually look at one of those and slice it really skinny and put it under a microscope slide.
Slicing and looking at it like it's like rings in a tree.
It's actually really fun. I did a lot of otolith work in my previous lab. Yeah, so that was what I've done all different types of species, and it's definitely challenging for sure.
I made Raven take one out and show me what it looked like. I'm like, I want to see this thing. I don't believe it exists.
Yeah, they're fantastic. It's so much fun. It's very
fantastic. She put it right on the edge of her hand, and I took a picture of it right there, and that picture's up on our website. So you can see just how tiny it is. Yeah.
So I'd love for Jess to do like a live otolith extraction dissecting at some point. But I mean, I've seen it done. Dr. Corey Eddy, shout out to Dr. Eddy, when he was doing a lot of research here in Bermuda when he was on the island a few years ago. That was the whole thing. Like everyone knew about these otoliths, and stable isotopes was his thing, and doing all that type of analysis. And Kelly, I'm far from a scientist. I just pick up these buzzwords like what is it? Milliliters. Anyway, sorry.
Micromilling?
I don't know. Some crazy stuff. So if you have, and this is for the benefit of myself and our viewership, if you have if you have a whole lionfish in front of you, how long does it take you to extract that particular piece of the fish?
Not long at all. So when we go to dissect them, we just cut open the bellies and we open up the bellies and we pull out the stomach contents. But a lot of times what we do first is cut off the head because that just makes it easier to access the rest. And then we'd put all the heads in a bag for Raven and she'd take them off. And, but we kind of keep them labeled as to which fish it was from where, what time, what date. So I don't know if you remember, but on the boat, every single lionfish that we collected, we were putting it in Ziploc bags and labeling as to what day, what dive, what date, what buoy number we're at, who collected it, all this information in Sharpie on the outside of these Ziploc bags as we're throwing lionfish in. And then those all went in a freezer. And then we took them all back. And then one day we flaw them all out and we do these mass group dissections. We bring in students from the local university and staff, and we do all sorts of dissections and measuring. And the other thing we've done with the stuff from our dissections is DNA work. genetics. So we, in the early years when we first started doing this, we would send fin clips off from every lionfish, and they were doing DNA analysis. And that way
Okay.
they're able to say that all of the lionfish that we are getting in the Gulf of Mexico and throughout the invasive range can be traced back to like 30 original females. We've got hundreds, thousands of lionfish out there, and they can all be traced back to like 30 original females. It's just incredible. So
I do know, and we've like the local, the scientists on the ground in Bermuda aren't here anymore that I got to know quite well. One was on the boat with us, Dr. Goodbody Gringley, and Dr. Eddie was here too. I think Tim Noyes at BIOS might be doing some stuff, but I do remember at the derbies them kind of doing a bit of dabbling with the fish, and it was the fin clip. I remember using some type of a punch or just cutting a little section of it and sending that somewhere to do some of that work. Now, I say that to say, I don't know who's doing that work now still.
Yeah. So actually what we were doing on your trip is they were taking samples from lesions they were starting to find on the side of lionfish. And that was Alex. That was Alex Fogg that was doing that. Because they're starting to see these kind of sores on the side of lionfish. And they're wondering if it's some kind of parasite or disease that's affecting only lionfish. And they were curious to see if they were finding it in the flower garden banks. And on that trip, I think we found a few. And so they were taking some samples from those. The fin clip stuff we always did all back at the office. But yeah, we have done demonstrations, I think, on the boat to show what kinds of stuff we do. So that could be what you're remembering as well. But yeah, all sorts of cool stuff going on with lionfish.
Yeah, lots of really amazing takeaways from the experience. I love the papers that have been released that I need to check out. Certainly, I can see where you have an experienced army of cullers that have that search image burned into their minds, being able to decipher, seaweed or soft coral between a huge lionfish, hanging upside down in a crack or crevice. I just remember thinking, I'm gonna best Alex. Like, this is my time to shine. And he had the camo wetsuit, the free diving, the speed fins, basically, right? So I had my like cave diving jet fins that are built not for speed at all. I think it's more maneuverability than anything else. And he's just zoom. I was like, okay, nope. I think the second dive, I was like, this isn't gonna happen. Let me just hang out with Katie and play with the turtles or whatever, because he was certainly built for speed and definitely keyed into covering as much ground as possible while having that search image in his mind and looking. I remember shining the light and he's buzzing around, and I was like, holy cow, I need to re-up my gym membership as soon as I get back home, because this is interesting. Jess, how did you get on with your calling? Who was your buddy?
Michelle, my former lab mate Michelle was my dive buddy, and we did not do as good as the other teams by far. But we also, relatively speaking to the other teams on the boat, we were definitely like newer compared to them. So we were just so happy to get to be there and to get to experience it. It's interesting because it's so different seeing lionfish in a more natural type habitat like the flower garden banks versus where I had been culling lionfish, which was out in Florida in the Destin and Pensacola area. So you have to think it's like a little bit different habitat, because there it's all artificial. And so they stand out a lot more. It's really easy to find them. But in the flower garden banks, where we have that beautiful, like really high coral coverage because the reefs are so healthy, it's a completely different experience getting to try to find them and like having to adjust your what you're looking for in all of the little natural crevices. Also, it's a little intimidating because those corals are so healthy and so beautiful. Like the last thing you want to do is damage the corals whenever and so it's one of those like you try to like shoo them away and get them out and like get them into like the perfect spot, because whenever you're diving and it's like a old piece of like metal sticking there, like if your spear goes through and pops the metal, like no harm, no foul. Like you're not going to do that at the flower garden banks. Like I've been diving there since 2004, and like I'm not touching those corals. They are too beautiful and too pristine. And so, but it's amazing seeing their camera, because you think like, oh, I mean, they're these like very flamboyant fish and they have the spines and all this stuff, like, oh, they're like super easy to spot and reef, but they actually, their camera was extremely good. I've never been so excited to see a sea urchin in my life. I'd be like charging after the sea urchin, all proud of myself, and then I get over there and it's not a lionfish, and I was like,
Yeah, because you see the long, especially the
You
long
do.
ones.
You just see them off in the distance, and
Yeah,
then like you
I'm
come
like,
up and you're like, I got you.
it's
Nope.
that weird adrenaline rush that you
You
get when
get
you're
so
like,
excited.
I see it, you know, and then you
Yeah.
shine your light or whatever, and you're like, no,
Oh,
that's
Well,
not it.
and by the time you guys came out, like Weldon said earlier, we had fewer numbers.
yeah.
So we saw the numbers go up and up and up each year progressively as we did the Lionfish Invitationals. We started doing them twice a year. And then in 2019, we
You're just
saw
like,
the fewest numbers we've ever seen on either trip. And we were like, what the heck's going on? So something similar was seen in Florida Keys and other areas where the invasion hit earlier, where they see a big spike in the numbers and then a drop, and then things kind of come back up again and level off. So we don't know if that's maybe where we are with the flower garden banks since we got them so much later than other areas. But we didn't get out in the sanctuary at all in 2020, and the few trips we've had this year, they're not seeing lionfish. Nobody's reporting lionfish, so the numbers are still way down from what we can tell. We're not sure why. Maybe we just did too good a job, but I find that hard to believe considering we just did very specific areas on the reef. We certainly didn't cover the whole reef by any stretch. So yeah,
have
interesting.
you been seeing them on ROVs a little bit deeper than recreational dive limits? Whenever you guys go out there, have you been doing any ROV work out there lately?
Not this year and not last year, but when we do ROV stuff, yes, we have seen lionfish. We have some of our deep water photos have pictures of lionfish, sometimes whole clusters of lionfish. You know how they tend to hang around in groups sometimes. But yeah, I don't, that's, the people are still working on techniques for culling down where we can't dive so easily. And we'll see what happens with those. But yeah, they're there, but the numbers, at least on the shallow reef, are not what they used to be, and we're hoping maybe it stays that way. Maybe something's learning to eat them. We have a healthy environment. Maybe something's out there starting to figure it out. That'd be nice,
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
it's interesting. I remember, early on, I used to. I mean, I've been involved with this fight here locally for quite some time, dabbling in and out of teaching the courses, and I don't teach the local like licensed courses anymore. But I know one of the closing slides is that we tell everyone that this is a forever problem, and maybe it's not a forever problem. Maybe it's something like you said, Kelly, that nature has probably figured out something. Who knows? It is interesting though to see numbers either sort of flatline or sort of decline. It's very interesting. Or they're getting smarter, and they're like, hey, if we go below 150 feet or so, these guys can't get us. I don't know.
Yeah.
They caught on to the whole eat them to beat them, because what I say as well, Kelly, is like if lionfish weren't edible, if the meat wasn't good for consumption, we might be in a different place as well. I think we'd still have people in the community that are keen to cull them, but certainly being able to eat them is a bit of a, what do they call it? Just a bit of a silver lining in a very grim situation. Do people eat those invasive stars? Those starfish that are
The crown of thorns.
Yeah, are they edible?
I don't know of any starfish
You're
being
like-
edible. That just doesn't sound good.
No.
I'm a picky eater though, so maybe it's just me.
JD, we'll put a little jerk sauce on that, kind of barbecue jerk, put some sweet and sour sauce on it. You know what I mean? Just do it up real nice. I don't know. Kelly, thank you so much for your time. I don't want to keep you much longer. I'm just super honored and thankful to have.
I'm excited that you guys invited me. This is really great. I've seen your Facebook posts about these shows, and I have to admit I'd never really looked until you said, "Hey, could you want?" And I just went and watched some episodes. So yeah, really cool.
Yeah, we're building
so
it while we
happy to
fly.
see you.
Yeah, just it's. I mean, we could talk for a good hour or two just about
Oh,
all
yeah.
work, your experiences, the expeditions you've been on, what you do at NOAA, and more current would be like, when are we going to see you again, and when will things settle down so that traveling is more conducive, and being
Yeah.
aboard the Fling is not a risk.
Right.
So yeah, I'm super excited and thankful. Thank you so much for joining us on the Wade in the Water show.
So
Be
wonderful.
safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, be safe out there, and keep in touch.
All right. Thanks.
Bye, Kelly.
Bye.
Bye. So cool. What a way
Fantastic.
to round off this season, right? Like, to have Kelly from NOAA on the show, super dope. And for our viewership, I just want to say that we didn't have much time with Kelly tonight. I wanted to open up to you guys to ask Kelly questions, but I think she did a fantastic job hitting all the key points and even reiterated some things that Jess and I had opened up with. So she's gone. She has another appointment to get to. So we only had her for a short amount of time. Jess, let's switch from our talking heads thing and share some multimedia to these guys. I know JD is keen to see some stuff. So he's heard about, okay, the Fling, liveaboard, 100 miles offshore. So whenever you're ready to share your screen, I'll see it pop up and I'll queue it up. And you can share your gallery and then I'll share mine. And then, yeah, that might be that.
All right. So here are some pictures I wanted to share with y'all. So this was our crew from the June 2019 trip. It was actually really cool. We were out there on the Pride in the Ocean Day, so we took this group picture out there. But this is the crew. It was a fantastic group of divers, of cullers, of scientists, and we all got to meet. It was so cool because there was people from all over. Some of them were local Texans like myself, and some of them were from faraway Hawaii, Bermuda. And then from all over the U.S., we had a lot of Florida people out there represented. It was really, really fantastic group, and you can kind of see. So this is up. This is actually out on the back of the boat that we took this.
Yeah, I remember that shot.
Yeah. So this is, you can't see a whole lot. I wish I had a better deck picture, but this is you can see a little bit of the top of it. You can see this is me in my happy place.
Little sunset action, sunrise, sunset. There's something going on.
Oh yeah. It was definitely sunset here. And you can see we got the stairs going up to the back deck, and you can kind of see some of the wetsuits hanging there in the back. Yeah. They have a really good setup for all of our equipment. We leave it out on the back deck the whole time, so none of the wet stuff comes into the boat with us. And it's a really, really good setup. Like they're out there for divers. That's the whole point of it. It's nothing else.
You just look so happy.
I'm telling you, that's my happy place, guys. And we're so lucky. I mean, I know the sunset's pretty anywhere, and I might be biased, but man, we get some gorgeous sunsets and sunrises out in the Gulf of Mexico. She loves to show off for us. So this was us hanging out on the top deck after. I think almost everyone was up there that night. That was the last night. That was whenever Weldon broke out the swizzle. That's what we were drinking in those cups, I'm pretty sure.
There we go. We did have a bar. Alcohol consumption we're all adults on the boat.
Yes.
And it was allowed after all the diving was done. So
yep. So we had it on our last night out there.
That's so dope. Yeah.
And then this is so for all of you guys out there, so you dive all day. We were only doing daytime dives. We weren't doing any night dives because this was we're trying to replicate this each year, so we kind of have this like the same rules that we go by each time. But in the evenings, after we've had dinner and we're hanging out, you can see this is all of our zookeepers over here. Everyone's kind of hanging out. We got some delicious desserts. People are chowing down on because the boat always took very good care of us. We were never hungry. But here I am measuring some of the lionfish. So each day after we would measure all of our catch, and then we would put them into the individual bags like Kelly was talking about. So that way we knew, where it was caught, which day, which location, and then we'd write down the information on there. And obviously you have to be pretty careful when you're handling them because you want to avoid those venomous spines, right? But yeah, so that was our
all the processing.
Yeah,
all the processing. I mean, I don't have a snapshot of the final tally, but I know there was, I believe, upwards of 200 lionfish. But what you never want to do is fall behind. So the fish you caught on that day were processed into the evening. And I remember I did have to I helped out a little bit, but I was like, let the scientists do that thing. I'm going back to the bar or going back to lay down. Yeah, I'm tired. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because this picture brings back a lot of memories of whenever I was working in my research lab when we would sample all day long. It was a different type. It wasn't diving, but I've spent a lot of time hanging out on the back of the boat, taking measurements, labeling jars, that type of stuff. So this is what it looks like in science as well as during these lionfish derbies is, you work all day long, and then in the evening, it's not relaxed time. That's the time to catch up on all of your samples and stuff like that. a lot of beautiful evenings spent out on the back of a boat, which is kind of the best place in the world to be. So you never know what you're going to see. I don't think we saw any on this trip, but on other trips out in the Gulf, when you're hanging out and you have like the lights on the boat, on the back deck, you'll get all sorts of cool stuff. You'll see some cool like flying fish. They'll like rest on the surface, and you just never know what you're gonna see. Sometimes I've seen jacks like chasing after the flying fish on the surface. It's pretty fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you never know what you're gonna see. And then you said you had some pictures too, right?
I do.
All right,
I'd love to share some pictures. I also want to recognize we did have a manta ray expert on the boat, so he was looking for mantas to kind of maybe tag them or get
he had his tagging equipment.
Yeah, I got a sample of something that was pretty cool. And if we, I think the invitational group on Facebook is private for those that were a part of the expedition, but I know that I remember seeing some manta action happening. I mean, if they've been going back there since 2015. So I take it that Kelly was doing one expedition to cull lionfish, and then they doubled up. They started to do like a June and an August, which is pretty cool too. So, I mean, I remember wrapping up the June expedition in 2019 and thinking, can I make the August one? I think I was heavily considering trying to make a couple of calls for the funding to come back because it was such a really, really amazing time. But I'm going to go through my quick Facebook gallery.
Yeah,
so the benefit of sharing this is I'll narrate as I go through, but then this is available on my public Facebook page as well if you guys want to dabble around at some other point. But I'm going to go picture by picture quite quick. So this is what it looked like at our meet. We had to meet at this restaurant, meet and greet, as well as get a briefing on what we were going to do. And we also participated as a group in the culling course in order for us to get the blessing to actually cull lionfish from the flower gardens. Let me full screen that so it's a little bit better. This is us at the pier boarding the Fling charters, and we're handing in all our paperwork. And I remember we needed to show our proof of certification. We had to show proof of insurance. So I was a little bit nervous because I wasn't sure if my DAN coverage would be valid. And then I had my PADI instructor buddy print off all my PADI certs. And I was like, I hope I have everything, because it would suck to get to this point and something doesn't check out. And then you got to go home. I'm like, where do I go? I have nowhere to go. Some more group shots. Amazing group of people. This is Team Waterproof. Shout out to Waterproof.
Little twins.
I would say they provided us with wetsuits, but no, I don't think any of us had sponsorship from Waterproof, but it was fantastic to be on deck with these guys and the matching suits. Shout out to Ali from Reef up there in the back. And Rachel, Gretchen, Alex, and Kendall, that's her name, in the purple aqua lung. I'm just taking shots with my phone at this point as things happen. Alex, Fogg, and Rachel.
I love these pictures because you can kind of see the way the gear area of the boat is set up. So we have all of our little slots on the boat for all of us we each have our own spot for our gear, and you kind of get locked in.
Yeah, we all had our spot, and you see all the guys that are in the scene. You got all your whips. So the compressor was below deck, and all the whips were just going straight to the cylinders. It was very, very well laid out. This is my buddy Katie. So we had our own little zookeeper. We had all our kit. We used all the same gear every dive, and we just giant stride right off the side of the boat to get into the water and hold onto a line and make our way down.
I want to hear what your thoughts are on the giant stride off of the Fling. It's a lot of times when people come out, they're like, "Oh, this is like a giant stride."
It's the giantest. Let me just for JD, because JD is only live, and I'm just gonna say JD, hey. She has a jump. I want to say it's like we've got the Newton dive boats. It's like jumping off the top of the Newton, like not the roof of but where the captain would sit. It's a good fall. And yeah, once you commit, you're in.
The ladder getting back on is a journey.
Everything was a thing. Everything was a thing, and you get out, and you're on the back deck, and you climb up or whatever, and the guy's there to get your air remaining and your dive time. Like, he was getting data. It was amazing. You don't just get up and dekit and sort yourself out. It was giving those guys the data. But quickly moving on, it's Ali from Reef and I, all smiles, again, using my phone to take quick snapshots before putting the phone on the bench and jumping in. Because these are like, I don't want to say once in a lifetime, because that's a bit of a stretch, but I felt like, okay, this is my first expedition. Let me capture as much as I can. Shout out to Team Bermuda at the time, Gretchen, Alex, and myself. And then I grabbed Kendall, brought her into the frame. She just makes the whole picture pop. Thierry, she was my my buddy during the drive from the airport to the dock. So it was wonderful getting to know her and hanging out with her. Had to get sort of a picture with Rachel, the rock star. Guys jumping in, team waterproof. The stack of zookeepers is always pretty cool. You'll never see this kind of thing around here unless someone, hint, hint, organizes something like this. I don't even know if there's this many zookeepers in Bermuda as a whole. I'd probably, correct me if I'm wrong. Just bring up JD's comment there. Yeah, the zookeepers. I mean, this isn't a bad thing to say, but by the time you get one in Bermuda, they're actually quite expensive. And then the parts that you need to replace over time. And then most of the avid cullers that I'm aware of tend to be free diving. So they're using a completely different setup to contain their catch, whether or not it's inflating a portable little dinghy or towing a hard shell mini kayak. So the zookeepers in Bermuda aren't extraordinarily popular. All the dive shops would have them, but in terms of the community, will take some like water containers and get a funnel and kind of DIY it. But again, just to go back to what I alluded to earlier, we're not catching super duper high numbers either. I haven't been anywhere in Bermuda where we see in one field of view, you've got your mask on, you're looking at a reef, 10 fish, 10 lionfish within a little area. Like you have to cover ground to get that many. So yeah, I just shout out to the manufacturers of the zookeeper because they're really, really great. I talked about this whole competition side of this, right? And A&R, Alex and Rachel, we got the numbers and we just tallied everything up. And I'm somewhere down near the bottom now. Where's W? It's got to be the W. Yeah, Weldon and Katie. We were doing pretty well. I was pretty confident. And yeah, the numbers didn't quite match up. But that's the wonderful Rachel Bowman and Ali from Reef again. Just checking out the numbers, seeing who's up on the leaderboard. View from the bow. I mentioned I go to the bow occasionally and just hang out. And the oil rigs on the horizon was pretty interesting too, because I'd never seen an oil rig with my own eyes before, Jess. So I was like, wow. And then the refineries on land, right? Like that's completely. So you come here and we've got real cool features and points of interest that are unique to Bermuda. But for me, I was like, refineries, wow, and oil rigs, wow. It blew my mind. More zookeepers. I was fascinated by the number of zookeepers, but this time they're full of lionfish. And JD says, "Yeah, it ain't that many here." Nobody's. We ain't rocking zookeepers here like this. Just a few more to go. Our friends with some lionfish, some cylinders. These look like steels. Yeah, some guys brought their own cylinders.
That is the cool thing about the Fling is you have an option whenever you charter and you go out and do a trip out there, you can use their tanks they provide, or you can bring your own. And it's nice. It was great. We were getting to dive nitrox the whole time there. Oh, getting ready for the group pick.
Ready for the
they
group
take
pick.
the shout out to the DMs to the dive masters on the Fling. They always had our tanks ready
John's
to go.
not in the shot. Yeah, John is in the group shot, which I didn't take because I wanted to be in the shot.
Yes.
And I didn't want to be that guy that's like, take my phone. I knew there was going to be a solid group shot that I have that I will share. But John, I follow on Facebook, and he's like a pilot now. I remember he bought the new Shearwater Tarek watch, and I was like, bro, that's so wicked. I'll get one soon. But I do fault. John is one of the people that I absolutely have so much respect for. He took so good care of us. They all
Yeah.
did. But
Michael Baranowski was one of the other dive masters, and he is a dear friend of mine as well. We actually did our
Oh.
IDC together, and so it was so fun having another instructor, a friend out on the boat. But it was cool because he wasn't one of the divers with us; he was taking care of us. He was one of the dive masters, so
That's
always
super
making
dope.
sure that. We had our lines because out at the Flower Garden Banks, sometimes we get some really ripping currents. So we always had that tagline along the side of the boat to help us get down to the mooring line. So that way we can conserve our energy. Also, you're not like super hydrodynamic when you have like a reef, a zookeeper clipped off
Oh
to you. So it was
yeah.
really great. You just hand over line, get down the mooring line, and that way you can get on the hut. So yeah, they took such good care of us, and the whole crew was fantastic.
Viewership for you guys that are on the live. If you have any questions, now's a wonderful time to ask us because it is 11 minutes past the hour already. And as much as I don't want to wrap up our season finale tonight, we got to at some point. But before I go down that route and get a bit sad, I do have the group photo that I found.
Yes,
Can
there
I
we
full
go.
screen this? How do I? Yeah, there we go. We got Kelly front and center, who was just on the live with us from NOAA. And yeah, John, um, I mean, just going through all this stuff earlier, just to bring this experience front of mind, I was like, wow, that was really great. Such a great time with you guys. And as far as I know, I might be wrong. Like nobody got hurt. There was no
Mm-mm.
drama. Um, Nothing got like lost or broken. Just pure vibes. And like I said, it wrapped up in such a euphoric experience that I was like, can I come back here in 2 months' time? Like what, you know? But I did get a bit of support on the funding side to make it on this expedition, and it was like I had to choose. And maybe there wasn't even enough space at the time, but you know, here we just don't have anything like this. Like Bahamas has the aggressor fleet, so if you want to do a liveaboard, it's more accessible. We don't have and we probably don't need, but sometimes it would be nice to jump on a boat that's got everything you need and go around the island without having to necessarily come back on land. But everything's just expensive. Bermuda is the most expensive place in the world to live, so it's no surprise. But we did have the Project Baseline and Necton here back in probably 2017. And the Project Baseline yacht or ship, I should say, expedition ship, they had all that stuff. They had 2 submersibles, full rebreather support, full open circuit support, a tender, the whole 9 yards. And so that's the only thing I've seen at that level. But then we also have the Bermuda Institute of Ocean Sciences has a big ship. I don't know what they have on deck though. So JD, I know you was down there, right, with he was down there doing some stuff. I don't know what complement of equipment that the Atlantic Explorer has on deck, but certainly it'll cost a bit of a mint if Magic, you, Jess, and I wanted to charter that boat to go out and do some diving. Like I totally forgot about that ship. Like it's huge. They go offshore and do all kinds of crazy things. I know, like,
Cool.
yeah, it's great. So I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. Yeah, it was really, really cool.
It's
Really
such a
well
good trip.
taken care of. Like I can't even think of anything where I'm like, yeah, it would have been more great if whatever. It was great having a couple of familiar faces on the boat by way of Alex and Gretchen. It was great being, surrounded by all the rock stars of the region at the time. I got to meet Jess, and here we are hanging out late at night every Wednesday for
It
some
worked out
crazy
all right, I
reason.
guess.
Uh,
Yeah.
So it says Carla Smith may be in the chat. So StreamYard is, and shout out to StreamYard. They sent me this really dope mug, providing the technical sort of pieces to make all this happen really, really nicely. What I can't see is all the it's not aggregating all the information that I'd love to, and I don't want to like overwhelm the system. I'm keeping it very lean in case anything goes glitchy. But I see many comments, but I can't see like who's in here. Like I see
I'm trying to see if
37
I could see.
There's one person on the Guardians of the Reef page. There are 5 people on YouTube, and there's 38 on our Facebook stream, but I can't see the names. But Kyla, if you're on the live, thank you, wicked. Shout out to Bios and all the other divers out there that have been enjoying this 10-week series. So I think this is it. I think this is it, Jess.
Oh man.
It's goodbye for now.
Well, I hope y'all had fun with us. I hope you enjoyed the journey, and all of the different conversations. If you guys have anything you want to hear more about in season 2, let us know. And we're hoping to come back with some cool video as well for you guys. It's gonna be fun. You guys are gonna be in for a treat.
I think it's gonna be cool. I think that I'm gonna look over. I mean, you know me, my best friend Keenan always pokes me with respect to, like, wanting polish and looking at the numbers and trying to get everything all perfect. So shout out to you, Keaton. You've inspired me to even do all of this. But I'm definitely going to have a look at those numbers and the analytics and get feedback from you guys to say, okay, well, cool. You've seen what Jessica and I can do. We got great video, we got great audio, we got a really good flow. So we got all of that. We're checking quite a number of boxes, but what we want to do is make sure that, the show's not really going to be all about us and all the things we've done. We want to make sure that you get value out of the hour or so that you spend with us, again, whether you're on live or on the replay. So feedback is open. Comments, suggestions, changes, this is all for you, as long as we stay in our niche, right? As long as it's ocean related, it's diving related, we're happy to talk about it. And like I've said a few times, like, we definitely want to make this a bit earlier for our viewership, whether or not that's during the day so that students can participate as well. Between 9 and 3, maybe around just after dinner time, Bermuda time, maybe. But certainly not as late as this. I do think that, not all of us are night owls out here, but salute to the night owls that have been hanging out with us, like Magic and JD and the gang, taking it all in. So, what's this? Take Jess Lionfish Reef. I ain't been Lionfish Reef for a minute, but I remember the tarpon, and I remember the lattices in the reef. Yeah, we'll get Jess out to Lionfish Reef. Jess, any last words before I end the stream and get sad?
I don't know. I don't know how you end the last episode like this of the season, but other than to say, tune back in, watch this space. We're going to be coming back at you with season 2. It's going to be fantastic. And thank you guys for coming along on this journey with us. It's been fun for sure. And we've had some really, thank you, Magic and JD and Fernando and Kelly, for coming out and hanging out with us on some of these evenings and talking with us. It's been so much fun getting to share these conversations with you guys.
And Magic, just in case I extract the audio for podcast purposes, I'd love to read your comment. Magic just put up a comment. Guys, I've had a blast tuning in every week. This has been a great way to spend my Wednesday nights. Looking forward to season 2 and would love to be back on for an episode. Magic, definitely will have you back. Definitely ramping up the special guest side of things. And I don't know if I've said this. I've said build it while we fly. That's kind of my thing. But the last 10 weeks has really been a bit of a test, to see what can we do with what we have. And do we like what we see? And yeah, I think we're doing all right. And the show has taken on some legs of its own. We've got a brand new, beautiful co-host, and it's been a wonderful 10 weeks with you guys. So I'll sort of end it at that. Thank you so much to our viewership, to Magic and JD and you guys that have been coming out every week. And shout out to TeleBermuda International and Bluewave that have provided us with the phenomenal bandwidth and sponsorship. And it's a wrap.
All right. You guys get out there, get diving.
Keep your gills wet. Yeah, get in the water. Keep your gills wet. Keep those lionfish in check. Keep the marine debris off the bottom. And yeah, it's the fall, so it's nice. Things cool off a little bit, and it's beautiful. Well, you know how we do. I normally close this out with a TBI ad, and then that's it. And that is exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to queue up TBI ad 2. And thanks to my friends that helped put this together. And shout out to the production company and all those guys. Yeah. Thanks again. It's October 6th, 2021. And we're signing off episode 10, the season finale of season 1. Cheers. We are gone. So I got a message on social media letting me know that there was some debris here at Admiralty Park Beach. So I stood up an event on Facebook, invited a bunch of friends to meet me here after work, and we dove for debris. I mean, the ocean connects us all. To me, it's one big blue ocean. Ultimately, if I throw a piece of trash or a piece of trash ends up in the ocean, it could float anywhere. And in fact, most of the debris that washes up in Bermuda is long-range foreign trash that has come from anywhere as far as West Africa or even Japan. Everything just swirls around and ends up on our shores. So we're all connected, whether we recognize it or not. Documenting all the work that we do is very, very important. And taking photographs and shooting video and even going Thank you, live Antoine. during Appreciate these you. exercises is such a phenomenal thing because it opens up to the world the effort that we're doing. And in fact, most of the time we catalog the debris that we catch and put that into an online database. And just TBI facilitates all of that, whether it's going live on site, taking photographs and creating an album on Facebook, or posting all of our photographs to Instagram. It's just valuable, and having the internet opens up what we're doing to the world. My name is Weldon Wade. I'm a diver, educator, and advocate for ocean sustainability.